Hey guys, this is Jodi Stecyk, Stunt Coordinator from Canada, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So today I am joined by a special guest, Jodi Stecyk. He is a stunt performer and stunt coordinator. He has worked on a number of different projects, including movies like Deadpool 2, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, The Revenant, TV shows like Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Supernatural, and much more. Thank you for coming on the show today, Jodi.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So to just kind of kick things off, just so everyone can kind of learn a little bit more about you. You've been involved in the world of stunts for over 2 decades now, which is really impressive. Can you just talk a little bit about how you got started in this field?
Yeah, I mean, I was an athlete kind of growing up and wasn't much of a scholar, which is kind of well, a lot of the guys in stunts are like that, and the females as well. But just was always involved doing athletics. I played hockey from a young age. I was just baseball, everything sports, and then I kind of about in and around the age of 15, 16, I knew I wanted to be a stunt guy. Been watching TV shows like Fall Guy and Dukes of Hazard and all those kind of things, and thought, hey, that's pretty cool. And I knew I didn't want to sit in an office. So I was also a springboard diver, and a lot of the guys and girls, as they got older and they finished their competitive careers, they would go off and do these high diving shows around the world. So I kind of thought, well, that would be a great way to get my foot in the door and get started in the world of stunts and do live stunt shows. So I traveled to Eastern Canada for a few months. Was my first show, and then I did 5 months show in London, England, and kind of from there I got the experience and got the bug, and was lucky enough to make a demo reel when I went to London of all the dives and the fire dives and the high dives that I could do, and gave it to a guy working on a show called Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the spinoff, the TV show that was being filmed in Calgary. And a year later, he called me up, said, "Hey, you still want to be a stunt guy?" And I was like, "Yes." And that was the beginning. 25 years later, I'm here talking to you.
Now that's pretty. It's interesting too because I've had other people that work in the field of stunts, and some of
Mhm.
them didn't necessarily know that stunt, like being a stunt, performer or stunt coordinator, that was even like a field that they could like get into, but they just loved
That
it.
it existed.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it sounds like you kind of knew that from fairly early on. This was the field that you like wanted to get into.
Yeah, I knew it, but I didn't know how to get into it. Born and raised in small town Alberta. Really, not a lot of film goes on there, so it was a definite like. Like I said, at 16, I knew once I got done school at 19, I was still kind of trying to pursue it, and I really didn't get into it till I was 24. It took me 4 years or 5 years of actually trying to find that connection with that one guy, and then I got my chance. But then even after that, it was still another 10 years by the time I could actually make a living at what I was doing at being a stunt performer.
Yeah, so definitely, takes a lot of time
It
to.
takes a Yeah, yeah, it's a process for sure.
Now, for you, what would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions that people outside of this world of stunts have about this field?
Well, great question and an easy answer. They think we're all crazy adrenaline junkie guys, that we all just walked off the set of Jackass or something. But we're not. It's really evolved. It's really evolved even since I've started. So, being from Alberta, I don't know if you're familiar with Alberta, but it's a big Calgary Stampede and the Western persona. So a lot of the stunt guys are cowboys. So it all kind of and the stunt world kind of stemmed from that, right? Back in the days of the John Waynes and all that kind of thing. As there's John Wayne stuntman was called Yakima Canutt, and that's the beginnings of it. So it kind of started. My interest came from meeting some of those guys at an early age, and then evolved into I wanted to be a stunt guy. And now the stunt guys now though aren't they're coming from all different sports. They're coming from trickers. They're coming from martial artists. They're coming from pro athletes in bunch of different genres. So we're not those guys that are seeking that adrenaline. We're actually the guys that are seeking the thrill, but it's also the challenge, and it's controlling that adrenaline, like, you know, like, because any guy can jump into, you know, a rolling ball that goes all the way down the hill and, you know, bump into buddies, and that's funny. But, you know, we have to, when we do our job, we have to do it, and we have to do it in a certain way, and we have to do it over and over again in a certain way, and we have to hit marks, and we have to hit times, and we have to hit, there's a lot more that goes into it, for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely, you know, as far as like hitting marks and being on point, you know, like you're mentioning, it's not just
Mhm.
doing this stuff just kind of to do it. So that is
Yeah.
interesting.
Mhm.
Now, for you, Jodi, you've flipped cars, you know, driven motorcycles through glass windows, been on fire, been shot at. So, up to this point in your career, what have been some of the most challenging stunts you've done?
Well, yeah, I mean, the car flipping ones are always challenging, and for me, in my at this point in my career, definitely are is the most, yeah, I guess, challenging, and keeps you sharp, right? Because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. Every car is different, every situation's different. So those, you know, car stuff's always challenging, whether it's flipping cars or just a car chase, even,
Yeah.
you know, just sometimes it's a simple thing. Um, but it all keeps you on your toes, and I enjoy those the most, um, to do, because they are so challenging, and there's a lot of things you got to look after, and people, and usually it's your buddy that you're putting in the seat. So, you know, it's not, we're all a pretty close community, so, you know, you're not just putting another guy in there for a job, you're putting somebody in there that is a good friend of yours, you know, and you want to see him get out and walk away, whether that's myself or that's somebody else. But yeah, car stuff is, by far the best and the most challenging and the funnest stuff.
I was actually going to ask you, which you answered it right there. I was going to ask you also, like, what are some of the stunts that you enjoy doing the most as well? So the car
Yeah,
chases and stuff like that.
yeah, car chases are fun to do. High falls are fun to do too. They don't get done as much anymore. You know, it's kind of a lost art. It's funny because that's the world that I grew up, that I came from, because I was like a high diver, and then I did the high diving shows, which is like the World Cup of high, or the Red Bull World, the Red Bull high diving, kind of the same thing, except I did it before Red Bull did it, or were sponsoring it. So it wasn't televised. It wasn't on radios. It wasn't anything. It was just like some guy that put on this competition in Italy, you know, 15, 20 years ago. So it was fun to do that, but that's the world that I came from. So the high dives are cool. The high falls are cool for me, but I just, they don't get done anymore. Usually you're on a wire now, or, you know, it's very seldom that you're doing something, free fall from the heights. So
Yeah, which it's crazy how things, you know, definitely evolve. Working in, you know, this field obviously requires a lot of training, preparation for, you know, varying depending on the project. Can you just talk a little bit about, you know, what you do to help keep yourself performing at a high level on a day-to-day basis?
yeah, you know, myself, and most of all of the basically stunt performers, or the high end stunt performers, we're always training every day. You know, we're out there training, or whether it's, you know, my training now, because I'm a little bit older and I do stunt coordinating mostly, it's mostly just trying to stay in shape when I get a call, if I have to go work for a buddy and get shot and fall down, just so I can get back up again. uh, but and do it again. So, but I mean, the younger kids now, the stuff that they're doing is just, it's so impressive. It's raised the bar. It's like any sport, you know, like if you watch hockey, or if you watch baseball, or if you watch football, you know, you get that guy that's just like, he's so far above everybody, and he'll change that sport, because, and he'll, everybody around him will raise to that level and make it better. And that's kind of our business, kind of works the same. You know, every couple of years somebody will find a new guy or a new girl that will come in, and everyone's just like, wow, look at this person, look at this girl, or look at this guy, look what they can do. And then it starts that ball rolling of like, oh, he's busy, I got to find somebody else. So that whole evolution has been happening in my career, to see that happen, and everybody getting better, and guys getting plucked out, and this is the new guy in town, and then everybody, and then that guy becomes a couple years older, and there's another new guy in town, another girl in town, you know. So it's really neat to see that, and everybody trains really hard, and everybody, the cool thing about the stunt community in Vancouver is everyone really trains together and they trade. You know, like when I got into it, I was a flippy guy. I was good on the trampoline, so I would go. I wasn't much of a martial artist, so I would go hang out with stunt guys, and they would teach me how to fight and martial arts, and I would teach them how to do flips. And so you know, it's like I always refer to it as a blue collar worker, where you know, like an electrician will go over to a pipe fitter's house or a plumber's house and be like, hey, I'll fix your light if you come over to my house and fix my plumbing, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of that same thing, right? Like we're just blue collar guys that work hard at our jobs, and I'm going to teach you this if you teach me that, you know? So
Yeah.
it's really cool that way.
Yeah, so that's cool. So it sounds like a pretty tight knit community as far as just like the stunt
Very,
overall.
yeah, very, very tight knit.
For you, Jodi, you've been both a stunt performer and a stunt coordinator in your career. For those who aren't, you know, familiar with exactly what each position or role, you know, does, can you just explain the biggest differences between the two and what those kind of entail?
Yeah, I guess stunt coordinator is the person that the production will hire. So a movie will come into town and they'll need someone to take care of their stunt needs. So they'll hire me as a stunt coordinator or whoever else. All our job, you know, the job is the same basically. Is, you know, we read a script, we break it down, and we talk about what are stunts and what aren't stunts, and then once we settle those out, we start to talk about how we film them. And the stunts can get anywhere from an easy thing like a slap in the face, you know, to rolling cars or somebody on fire or a high fall, or, you know, to bigger stuff. So we break all those down, and we do a budget. We talk about how much it's going to cost, what the procedure is, how long it's going to film, or how long we have to film it, how long we think we need, how many people. Like we break it down to a T, really. Like we just right down to everybody in it. And then I'll hire everybody that's in that scene. So I'll hire my doubles. I'll hire, you know, what we call ND or nondescript. So if there's like, you know, five police officers drive up and, you know, they all come screeching in and jump out of their cars and start firing guns at the bad guys. Well, all those 5 guys that drove in, they're stunt performers. So it's my job to hire them. Now as a stunt performer, that's kind of what you do. You get the call, you make sure that you're in shape, you make sure that you have this proper skills. If I call you and say, hey, can you drive up and, you know, come slide your car 90 degrees and get out and shoot a gun, you have to be honest with me and say, yes, I can come in and slide the car at 90, or no, I've never done that before. So that's kind of where the stunt performers, his responsibility is as well. And it's a big one, because you don't want to overpromise and underperform as well, right?
Yeah,
so
I mean,
you kind of want to do it the other way. You want to, you know, underpromise and overperform.
exactly.
Make it look better.
Just because of, I mean, one, just because of safety reasons, because it's like if you can't do something, you're putting not only yourself but putting other people in danger. But then
Yes.
you could halt the production. You get there and you're like, oh wait, I actually can't do this, and you have to go about
Yeah.
finding someone else who can do it. So it can cause a whole mess of issues.
Yeah.
For you, what kind of led to you wanting to go from performer to like doing stunt coordinating?
You know, it was always in the back of my mind. I guess, you know, I was always, I was a natural leader. Even as a kid, I was a natural leader. When I was young, I remember one of my principals in school, and I was in the principal's office again, and he kind of, you know, he kind of mentioned it to me. You know, you're a natural leader. You know, the kids look up to you, and yada yada, and that kind of clicked a little bit. And I knew that I always wanted to do something and have more responsibility. I enjoy it because I get a say in how things are created. So I get to use my creative mind, that side of the brain, rather than just the side of the brain that goes to work and gets told what to do. I wanted to be involved in this other side and sit down with directors and producers and all the creative minds and writers and go, hey, why don't we do this? Or, hey, we could do this. Or if they ask me, hey, I wrote this down, but I have no idea how to do it. And then I go to them, well, this is how I would do it, or this is how you can do it. Right. So it's like a problem solving. It's really fascinating. And that's, you know, the one thing that people don't understand, and your viewers, and unless they've worked in film, won't really get, is like all these big films that come out, like Top Gun and all these things that are just coming out. Like there's a lot of things that go into it. Like there's so many departments, and they all come together and they make this amazing film. And it's sometimes they don't even meet each other. It's like it's emails, it's meetings over Zoom like this, or like it's a huge massive process.
I was just gonna say that too, because I mean, a while back, I wasn't as familiar with this side of the industry, but I've had, I've told you, I had a couple performers on the show who've done, stunts and things like that. I've gotten to work as an extra on some projects, so getting to,
Yeah,
you're sitting there for most of the day as an extra. You're kind of sitting there until they tell you to go out
yeah,
2 minutes or whatever. So you get
yeah,
to see everything else that's going on, and just seeing everything that goes into just like one scene or one
yeah,
scenes that are shooting for one day, all the different stunts, different things like that. It's a lot that goes into it, so I can't even imagine for things specifically where you mentioned like Top Gun, just what
yeah.
went into something like that to get all of those shots and everything all right.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy for sure, but it's a process that is so fun. And what I enjoy is that every time you get hired on a production, it's always different or new. I mean, the basis is the same, the end game is the same, but how you get there can always be different.
Yeah, as I say, I met because I mean, you do all kinds of different genres. You've done all kinds of different genres for movies or
Mm.
television, and all of those things require different kinds of stunts, I imagine.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Like I've done car stuff, I've done horse, I've done westerns, and had horses and guys riding horses and shooting guns off horses and falling horses, and lots of that. And I've just fight stuff, and yeah, it kind of all blends together after a while. But and that's what's great, is that you I go to work every day and it's not the same.
Yeah,
you know. So
that always makes it a lot more fun when you're not doing the
it,
same thing over and over every.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, and one of the things that I had mentioned, I saw that you were the stunt coordinator for the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I saw.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I was a big fan of that show, so I
Oh, okay.
wanted to ask you just what was your overall experience, like working on that show, especially where it was based more in like the horror genre. So what was that experience like? If you can talk about that.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, first and foremost, the crew was awesome. I mean, it was just like a little family, and that's part of what's so enjoyable about doing what I do, is that you go to work every day, and it's not often that you get a crew that gelled like we did, and everybody was just super respectful of each other, and looked out for each other. It was great. The cast was great. They were all top notch, super nice. The stunts on it, I mean, most of my stunts were running through trees and some fights and demon attacks and things like that. So the thing about that show was I actually learned a lot about visual effects on that show, because it was so heavy in visual effects.
Yep.
And before that all happened, usually we deal a lot with special effects. A lot when you're crashing cars and you're doing fire stuff, you cross over into another department with special effects. So you work together with them a lot, like with the head of their department, him, like whoever's the head of the special effects department, and myself, the stunt coordinator. They just work a lot. Now when you get into a show like Sabrina, you're also now you're with the visual effects artist. So because he's telling you what he needs. There might be a scene where a girl gets on fire or something, and then maybe she jumps out of a building, and they don't want to do it practically. Well, the visual effects guy can take over, and it's like, okay, well, what do you need? What elements do you need? And he might say, well, I just need her arm on fire, and then she's just got to jump off this scaffolding onto a pad, just so I have her in the air, and then I can do whatever I want in my plate shot of the building, right?
Yep.
So a lot of my conversations in my meetings were with those guys to kind of like work together to get that scene, and how we're going to do it, if we're on a budget, or like just all those things. There's so many elements that come into play, and that's what's fun. And the visual effects guys are like more and more. Even now, I'm currently working on a show called Snowpiercer, the fourth season, and it's lots of vis effects on that show as well, because it all takes place in a fictitious world. So we're on my stunt meeting that I have for every episode is always generally the vis effects guy is there too, because we talk about scenes that involve him. So he'll say, well, I'll take over here, or if stunts can give me this, or if the effects guys can give me that, then I can take over. So
yeah, so lots of collaboration, it sounds like, between the different departments, which again is something that I feel like if you're not as much like into, you're just kind of like watching these shows just for like the pure enjoyment, which is fine.
Yeah.
You're not as much into the behind the scenes, the background. You
How
don't
they do it.
Yeah, all these different departments. You're like, I didn't know this department would be working with the visual, effects, like you said.
Yeah. No, we work with them, ever since we flipped to digital, in the film world, we work with them quite closely.
Big change. Yeah.
And it was great. On Sabrina, I got to understand a lot more about what they need and what I have to give to them, and element wise.
Now, I was curious, kind of talking about that too. For you, where you've been a stunt performer, you've been a coordinator, you've worked with other departments. Do you have any plans about maybe branching into another aspect of the filmmaking or that whole thing?
Yeah. I mean, I've actually, if I wasn't doing stunts, I'd probably be in vis effects, because I do find it pretty fascinating. But right now, my goal, I mean, I'm still kind of on the goal of just keep doing shows, ones that I really like. I'd like to do I'd like to get into directing. Is kind of where I want to go. Specifically second unit. And it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a natural progression for a lot of stunt coordinators, but there's more and more that's happening too since I've gotten into it. Because a lot of times we are left with the second unit, and they schedule all the stunt stuff without any actors, just stunt doubles on the second unit to do all the stunts, because they're time consuming. When you get into big gags, they are very time consuming. So they'll cordon those off and say, okay, this will be a second unit day. And then they have a second unit director come in, and sometimes that is a stunt coordinator, or it's, a showrunner on a TV series that knows the show and, knows the feel of the show. So, but eventually that's kind of where I'd like to go. I've had a couple days on a couple different shows I've done in the last couple of years. So, hopefully down the road, that's where I'll end up.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, it's nice that you guys, there's so many different departments that, you can branch into if you wanted to. So it's nice, again, to just have that freedom to not being doing the same thing every single day. And you could possibly get into the other aspect of the film and television industry.
Yeah.
Now, to wrap things up, I know you said, and I don't know how much you can get into some of the projects, but I know you mentioned, working on Snowpiercer. Is there anything else that you can tell, fans that, working on like currently or have coming up, or where can they kind of look out for your work next?
Yeah, I mean, Snowpiercer is what I'm on now, season 4. And then before this, I worked on a show called Under the Banner of Heaven, which is out on Hulu right now. More of a drama show, not a lot of stunts, but a very interesting story. If you want to watch a good drama, it's got Andrew Garfield in it, Sam Worthington, some really big names, really good actors. And then also kind of between that show and Snowpiercer, I worked on a show called The Last of Us, which is a adaptation, I guess, of the video game, a very popular video game. I'm not a gamer, but when I heard a good friend of mine is doing the show, and it's almost done, but when he got it, he asked me to kind of give him a hand. So I was like, okay. So I went out and bought Sony's PlayStation and got the game, and ended up playing the game. I finished it. I played the game.
There you go.
Do it. Yeah, it was cool. Like I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And then and then I got to work on it. So it was cool to work on it after playing the video game. And I think that people that play the video game will be pleasantly surprised that it's going to be a lot like the video game, the show. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, I know that's definitely a big property that'll be coming out soon. Mm-hmm. So cool. A lot of, I mean, obviously you're very busy. So again, Jodi, I want to just, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on here and talk a little bit about what you do and some of the projects that you worked on. So thank you again for coming on the show.
Well, no problem. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, anytime, just give me a call. Hey guys, this is Jodi Stecyk, stunt coordinator from Canada, and you are watching Pop Culture with Pat.